Hi there. Well, now we're at the part where we're going to talk about how can we and who might we deal with to affect this rate of adoption. And let's think about what is there out there, what kind of ways are there in general that we can create a message or have an effect on in an institutional way, you might say. Well, not necessarily institutional, but in the general sense, this rate of adoption. Well, certainly media plays a huge role today. If you don't believe it, you must wonder why there's so much advertising on television and the radio. We're constantly besieged. We have phone calls we don't want, but because people are constantly after us to buy something, to make a statement, to whatever the case may be. Our lives would be better if we had this technology or this policy was put in place by the government, whether it's state, local, or regional, or federal. I mean, or if we had free trade in the world, whatever it is. Media plays a big role, and if you don't believe it, just look at the behavior of children and how television and computer games and all the rest of the things that are available to them and how they live on their cell phones, how that is affecting the way they engage with each other. So there's media, and the media is not only the television, but it's the network, and it's social networking and the internet. I mean, it's amazing what's on YouTube, for example. The other is grassroots. You know, back when we talked about the Ohio River Basin Energy Project, who was it that brought about change or began saying, hey, you know, we don't know if we like this change, and they wanted to affect that curve of adaptation. And it was a grassroots group that got together and went to the government to get help to do this. And many times you have to go to the government because industry's got their point of view. They've got their values, their interests, and their ethic, which is not necessarily yours. I mean, the ethic for business is, bottom line, keep the stockholders happy, whatever the case may be, maximize the profits of the ownership if it's privately owned, whatever it is. Minimize competition, maximize market share, and so on. So the ethic of the corporation is not the sum of the ethics of the individuals that work there at all. It's totally different. Could be the other, but most of the time it isn't. So you have to go someplace where somebody can hear you and help you have an impact, and government's one place. And so grassroots involvement can be very important. The other thing is you get somebody, and you'll see this happen all the time, they'll pass a law or a regulation, laws and regulations that force you to do a certain thing with your technology. We see that all the time. Government says, you will make cars that will meet a certain miles per gallon standard or safety standard, whatever the case may be. That some of those values that are projected in a law or regulation may have a lot to do with my business being able to sell you a product or get rid of a competitor's product. Have you ever noticed you go in to buy I did the other day, a simple thing. I wanted a wooden stepladder that's short. Well, I can't find them anymore. Well, why? Because nobody makes them anymore. Well, why don't they make them? Well, there was some law passed that said they're not safe enough, so you have to buy things that are metal or plastic. If you want to look at a tremendously good impact assessment and consequences of a law, look at the Clean Water Act. There's a lot happened as a consequence of that. And there were people that lost as a consequence of that law and people that gained. So laws and regulations help. Social networking is very effective. And as we know, with things like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. Another place is universities. You know, first it was the Japanese, then the Taiwanese, then the Koreans, now the Chinese, and others. It's not just those Asian countries, but there are others. Well, they want to get new technologies. They want to advance their society because its economic developments directly related to technology development as well as energy. So they'll send students over here to learn, so they take that knowledge back home. And that affects the adoption curve for that particular country or community. When I started out in the nuclear industry, the question was we needed companies in the United States that knew how to deal with nuclear power and radioactivity and all that sort of thing, and the safety issues and the new kinds of design issues that come into play when making things that are going to deal with the radioactivity. And so companies like Babcock and Wilcox and others would come and work with the groups I was involved with, because I worked for Argonne National Laboratory, which was a federally supported activity that was building the nuclear energy technology. It happened to be the boiling water reactor technology. So companies would send people because people learn and they take the information back. So they are tech transfer agents in themselves. Okay, well, that's some of the techniques you can use, but are there names for the people that play a role and the rates at which this adoption takes place? And there are. There's classes of people you might call stakeholders. Stakeholders are anybody that's going to be affected by this new process, technology, policy, whatever. And these are people who are either going to be hurt by it, or they're going to be gained by it, or their lives will be influenced by it. And so they're a stakeholder. There's something that they have that's a part that whatever's coming around the horizon is going to have an effect on them. So then there's the people that are early adopters. So if you're trying to sell something to a group of companies or to the government, and you find some people in that segment of the government who like to do things that are new, they're the early adopters. They're the maybe more entrepreneurial-oriented people, or they're more risk takers. You find them, and those are the ones you start talking to right away because you want them on your side. Awareness, trial, confirmation. The trial guys are going to be the early adopters, and they're going to want to say, hey, wow, this really works. That's the confirmation. You want that to happen as quickly as possible to get that rate going up as quickly as possible, or you want to slow it down and modify it. There's what they call the gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are people who are kind of like judges. There was a case years ago where they did a study, and they found in the adoption of a particular operational technique in the medical field that a whole bunch of doctors were slowly picking up this idea and to use this technique. And they went to them and they said, well, you found out about the technique? Yes. Why did you decide to use it and think it was okay to use it, get taught how to use this? And they said, well, we contacted so-and-so, and they kept asking all these individual doctors to find out, well, who did they get their okay from, you might say. It turned out there was one guy, one MD on the East Coast, that the majority of the doctors called up to say, what do you think about this? And he'd say, well, I saw it. It looked like he had seen the trials. He had been confirmed. And they went to him, and they said, does this look okay? He said, yeah. They said, okay, if you think it is, I will too. We are sheep. We all tend to follow somebody. So that's a very important group to get to know. Who are the gatekeepers? And sometimes you'll form a group to become a gatekeeper. If we look at the issue of robotics, and we'll come back to it here later on, but there's a movement afoot to make robotic soldiers that are autonomous, that can decide who's enemy, who's not, and eliminate or kill that person. Well, there's some people that think that's a very dangerous place for us to go. And so in England, they had what's called the Chatham House Conference in London in February of this year. and I think it was the 24th and 25th, to talk about this, and I've already gone to the UN and others to say, wait a minute, before the world takes off on this, and of course the United States is a leader in producing these kind of robots, doing the research to do that, they're trying to say, wait, we got a problem here. Let's stop and think about it. They're saying, let's not open the gate yet. That's basically what they're saying. So in this very short period of time, what I'm trying to say is there's the stakeholders, the early adopters, the gatekeepers, and the significant others, which we'll talk about later. There are people you want to find out who they are and how you can relate to them, and to have that have them help you bring about the change that you think is important because of your ethic in this rate of adoption. Well, this involves a lot of people interaction, so the next topic we'll talk about is a way to keep track of that. So, bye for now.